Hello, hello, hello. This is Tea with the Druid. My name is Philip Carr-Gomm, and Tea with the Druid is brought to you by the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids. I've moved my camera so you can see what's to the other side of this window, because normally it's always facing the other way. I wanted you to see that photograph that I took of Nguyen, my Druid teacher. I must have taken that 50 years ago, something like that. Just wanted to show you that. And now I'll move it around. Boom, boom, boom. Here we go. And there we are. So, good evening. And how nice to be with you, as always. Ooh, just right there. How nice to be with you. And as everybody arrives, we see people coming from Denmark and West Cork in Ireland, Newcastle, Healdsburg, California, North London, Scotland, Newcastle, Herefordshire, Southern Germany, Denver, Boston, Massachusetts, Finland. Hooray! Great to see everybody. Hello from Italy. Now, at any moment, this could cut out. The internet is just playing up massively. And I apologize if this suddenly goes poof in a puff of smoke and we don't see each other for a while. It's just one of those things. So living in the back of beyond. So lovely to see everybody. And as you gather round, let's just take some time to get comfortable, settle in, and to make use of this time to perhaps allow ourselves to slow down, allow ourselves to come into the circle together. The idea of the circle, if you can imagine this age-old human activity of, working through the day, looking after children and making hay and looking after the pigs and the goats and doing all the things and building the castles or whatever one was up to. And in the evening, there isn't any electricity for thousands and thousands of years. So you've just got the light of a fire. And so what do you naturally do? Too early to go to bed? Not quite ready for that. But there's nothing else. You gather around the fire and you share stories of the day. You talk about what's happened. You share any insights you've received, what wildlife you've spotted, what you've heard. So that's what we're doing. We're doing it in a new way, but in an age-old way. So allow yourself, if you wish, to just come to settle. And as you settle, just imagining that we're here in the circle together, knowing that we're here in the circle together, and just turn your attention inwards and take a rain check. How are you doing? And allow yourself to go a little deeper. There was that initial response to that. And now just go a little deeper, drop down a bit deeper. How are you feeling deep, deep, deep inside? Connect with that. And then come out and type in how you're feeling. Feeling fine and happy with the group. Hello, seagull. Yes, a noisy seagull out there. Decompressing from all the upheaves here. In spite of it all being a good place in our sacred place. Thank you, Kevin. Yeah. Struggling after losing mum in July. I'm sorry to hear that, Gabby. feeling in between. It's not unsettling, it just is. Contented, happy to be here, exhausted from a lack of sleep last night, calm and happy, content, scared and also thankful to be here. Very, very, very tired, peaceful and calm, connected, feeling renewed after swimming in Lintegit. Wow. Connected, content, I think almost still inside, lovely and content, hopeful, really happy to be with you all, pretty content, already a bit frazzled for a Monday, at ease. I feel happy in the circle, uplifted by the fellowship, grateful, tired after a busy day, thankful for tea, feeling tired, taking care of Michelle after her back surgery, peaceful, full of pure love, calm and centered, very sore post-surgery. Meeting together makes me happy, sad, but nothing terrible. Knowing my worries are temporary and trying to feel grateful, calm and in love, relaxed. Lintegid is one of my favorite places. How wonderful to have a swim there. Tired, but pretty okay so far. Grateful to be here after this morning's walk. A frustrating work day, but feeling calm already. Calm and lovely cool weather. Peaceful. I'm missing so many. I do apologize. Need to be more in nature and connected to it. Miss mushrooming in the UK lakes. Working to keep calm and hopeful. Exhausted but happy. Momentary lapse of normality. Grieved, scared about world events, but grounded and happy to be with you all. Tired and full. Grateful for cooler weather. Stressed but hopeful. A little confused, although feeling painful. Always feeling I should be doing something else. Yes, that's a funny feeling, isn't it? I gave my daughter a photograph I found in a gallery place, which had a sort of industrial photograph, landscape, and somebody had spray painted, I wonder what everybody else is doing. Seeking more energy to tackle the disarray in my art space. Okay, recovering from heart surgery gradually. So thank you all for sharing. And I wanted to focus on the comment, grieved, scaring about world events, but grand and happy to be with you. And the reason I showed you at the opening of this session, I showed you this picture over to the right, where I have a picture of my Druid teacher, who I was lucky enough to meet when I was really young. Because I thought we could explore the topic together just for a few minutes, and then we'll go into a meditation. But this idea that is perhaps unfashionable now, I don't know, but let me run it. Oh, sorry, I've pressed somebody's thing by mistake. Tell me if this is unfashionable or not PC, or I don't know, or just not in tune with the zeitgeist. But this idea that there's a hierarchy of being, and that there are, we talk about people being sort of evolved souls. So you had this idea, particularly, in that kind of early sort of theosophical kind of milieu that, when I was a teenager, I was sort of in and still maybe existing, this sort of feeling that there's a hierarchy of being, and people, there's basically the thugs down the bottom. And then gradually people become more refined, until you get the noble souls, and then beyond the noble souls you get the enlightened ones. Then beyond the enlightened ones you have kind of archangelic beings and sort of extraordinary beings of who are dedicated to taking care of the earth and humanity and so on. So that's an idea that I grew up with in my kind of esoteric training. Liz Hills says, I'm anti-hierarchical, so I'm against it. Exactly. The idea of a hierarchy of being can be racist, says Karasu the Dreamer. Exactly. This is what I wanted to hit on. Because what happened with the Theosophical Society is they got into this concept of the 7 root races, as they called them. And this became essentially a racist theory. And there's even a sense in which, if you look at the occult history of Nazism, for instance, this fed into the rationales of Nazis interested in the occult, such as Himmler, who posited the idea of the Superman, highly advanced, sophisticated beings. In the more sort of localized world of the sort of occult groups and all the rest of it, people would talk about this in terms of adepts and masters. So when I first came into contact with my teacher, who I'll show you again there, I was very much immersed in that, but I found very quickly that he wasn't a master in the sort of person on a pedestal sense at all. He was very human with failings. He used to drive me mad because he was a sort of grumpy old man some of the time, and he didn't know stuff as well as knowing stuff. I also followed a guru for a while who was trying to be that sort of powerful, omniscient figure, but it became very clear pretty quickly that he wasn't. But then I realized that there's a question of still respecting somebody, even though you're aware of their failings too. Let's see, glitching. I'm so sorry if it's playing around. Gabriella says, I understand diverse roles and diverse features, organized not in a hierarchical manner, but in we each contribute with our own light kind of way. That's a really nice way of reconfiguring this. And then AJ Williams, if we could, I'm going to catch these. So lots of comments coming in. If we could keep it intrapersonal, i.e. we're talking about internal processes or internal aspects of being, instead of interpersonal, and we are striving to be our best, it could be helpful. So everybody's striving to be their best. And okay. I'm in the UK, the streaming isn't working. Okay, I just have to apologize for that. Some of us have better internet connections, even if we are all equal. Yes. Philosophical Phoenix, I agree. Hierarchy makes me uncomfortable immediately. Okay, I agree. And we've moved from a kind of, in the old days, you see, the idea of hierarchy was paired with the concept of perfection and the concept of adepthood. As a young occult student, you were striving to become an adept, a sort of extraordinary being with psychic powers and totally dedicated to spreading the light and being in service to the all and all the rest of it. And so there was this concept of perfecting yourself. You talked about images from Freemasonry around the ashlar, the perfected stone, where you would chisel away at your impurities and so on, and you would become a perfected being. Then, thanks really to Carl Jung, I would say, the concept of individuation, the concept of stressing integration, of becoming a whole being, because of course he brought in this idea of the shadow, the fact that we all have shadows. So however perfect we're trying to be, there's going to be stuff that's seething away down there that needs to be sorted out. So it was really, from my understanding, it was the advent of sort of Jungian psychology that brought in the idea of sort of holistic understanding of the self, and that we shouldn't be individually seeking perfection, but instead wholeness, embracing even our tricky, dark sides. So if we accept that, what are we to say? Let's stretch the boundary. What do we do about societies, for instance? Are there some societies that are less evolved than others? Would you say under a dictatorship, it's less, that society is less involved than a democracy? How about that? Would you say a society where it's the strong who get the upper hand and the weaker members of society aren't cared for, is that can we apply the concept of hierarchy there? Let's see what Liz and others think about that. We may not want to apply it to individuals or in a sort of spiritual sense, but what about societies? Let's look at what Zell is saying. There are many layers of evolution in the brain and perhaps a spectrum of responses which is influenced by how safe, nourished, supported, educated, and privileged we are, whether we access the primal survival instincts or more creative, insightful, and planful parts of the brain. Those layers are all in us, and of course, some will be activated more strongly than others. Even if you look at very simple things like brain injury, can knock out certain layers. Okay. 3 hedgehogs have just joined the meditation. That's lovely. Let's see. Anne Beer. I feel everyone has the potential to wake up to the fullest flow of spiritual energy, but sometimes there are blockages that can hold us back. No innate better or worse. Instead, all beings are capable of returning to full connection to the universe's energy. Okay. Are we worried that we're being judgmental if we look at somebody, say, who's caused a huge amount of suffering, killed people, tortured people, compared to somebody who's done a great deal of good in the world? Is there not some sort of hierarchy going on? Wouldn't you place them in a different sort of position? That's not how evolution works. Not sure what Liz means by that. Let's have a look. Here's an interesting point. Modern Western society certainly seems to be unevolving, going backwards in some ways. That's something that us oldsters are sort of starting to observe in a way. Is I think back in the 60s and 70s, we thought the world was evolving, progressing in a certain way, and it does seem to be going backwards in some senses. There's, so let's have a look. Arcturus, here we go. Dictatorship seems to be undergoing an epidemic of violence, illness and trauma versus hierarchy. It needs healing. Lisa Horn, authoritarian types are definitely less evolved. Okay. Karasu, the strong getting the upper hand has affected me negatively as a disabled queer person. So you see where I know we're walking on sensitive ground here, but I think it's good to engage them. So that idea that we're kind of all equal and that there isn't a sense of hierarchy, maybe we're frightened of making, in a way, quite obvious statements about human nature. Maybe we're frightened of saying something that's pretty obvious, really. But maybe not. Maybe it's not. Let's see. Some societies have turned their backs on the wisdom of elders and no longer value their wisdom and guidance. So are they less evolved? Can we use that term? I feel that, what we're doing in a way with exploring these questions is we're just sort of, I feel like I'm exercising my brain, really. I'm just kind of testing out these ideas, and it's lovely to test them with a group of people. Gabriella, I don't see politicians as hierarchical, but as in a service role, in a similar direction to how doctors, airline pilots, teachers, etc. are, but on their specific lane. Okay. Karasu says, I think about this a lot as an autistic person. And then Sounds from the Hermitage. Elitism is maybe about selfishness. Is it not better to be selfless? Yeah. So You have to contextualize and historicize first, get it all in place. Exactly. Now Philosophical Phoenix comes out with a slightly different take on it. I see what you mean. To me, my gods are teachers and guides. They don't pretend to perfection, just further advanced on the journey of the soul. So can we say that some people, some people are obviously cleverer than other people. Some people have a more particular skills that are more musical. One person is more musical than another person, and so on. So does that apply spiritually? That's an interesting question. If you say, well, we all have talents, abilities, skills, capacities along a range, and so in the hierarchy of musicality, in terms of playing a musical instrument, I'm right at the bottom of the hierarchy compared to somebody who's a virtuoso on a violin, on an instrument. So we can posit a hierarchy there. That's okay. Can we posit a hierarchy spiritually? Are the great spiritual teachers of humanity, do we place them higher up on the hierarchy? So let's lots to talk about. We really ought to give this more time, but let's just let me yes. So Liz Hills shows her true colors as a scientist. Scientifically, evolution is purposeless and directionless, an emergent property of life interacting with their environment over many generations. And of course, that's just one particular point of view. There are other points of view and perspectives. Okay, so let's there's so much here. I feel like I've opened this Pandora's box of really interesting thing. Dorothy Abrams. Here's a thought. If all time is here and all time is now, evolution of the soul is a linear measure for the convenience of our limited brain. The soul knows and experiences growth differently and in a way that doesn't correspond to our beliefs in separation. Thank you, Dorothy. Let's take that. My apologies to those of you who have contributed a lot. That's really great, and I look forward to reading your comments later. Do keep making them, and of course, you know that on YouTube and Facebook, you can carry on making comments even after the broadcast is over. Let's move this to another question. Let me ask you another question. Okay, if we can say that there are some people who are better at playing music than other people, so there is some sort of range. Let's call it a range. Get away from a contentious term like hierarchy. It's a range. Some people are better at some things than others. Here's another idea from the occult tradition, or I say, is there a council of beings, an extraordinary council of highly evolved souls dedicated to humanity and the earth, who are operating on another plane? They're not incarnated. They're operating on another plane. They've been through many lives on earth, and now their entire beings are dedicated towards helping the earth and humanity. That's a very strong idea within certain esoteric traditions. Rather than trying to think about this, let's experience this. And in our usual way, let's do this in a relaxed and even playful way, if you like, but sincerely. And let's open ourselves to the idea. And whether it's just an imaginative idea or whether it's a reality, let's just see how it feels. Let's drop into a meditation now. And just being aware of ourselves seated here in front of our screens, we can just gently close our eyes or lower our gaze and take in a big, slow, deep breath. Hold for a moment and then breathe out fully and deeply. Second time. And as you breathe out the second time, the walls just start to vanish as you become so aware of being in the sacred grove. The mighty guardians of the trees around us, us seated as a circle here, the small fire burning in the center. And we can sense the earth beneath our feet. And we feel safe and grounded on the earth. We can allow our weight to drop onto the earth. And as we breathe in, we can allow the energy of the earth to flow through our bodies, bringing us a sense of health and vitality. You become aware of the trees around you, their roots deep in the earth. And you sense the presence of the trees now, of the sacred grove. These guardian trees. So different from us, and yet from a Druid perspective, these are spirits. These are our allies, our helpers. And becoming aware of the trees, we sense their peace and their power. And you open to their branches high above, and you sense the light filtering through the branches, and you get in contact with the energy of the sky, and you breathe in now. And as you breathe in, you feel the energy of the sky meeting the energy of the earth within the center of your being. And even though your inner eyes are closed now, as you simply sense the melding and merging of sky energy and earth energy in the center of your being, you can sense the energy of our circle around you. And imagine now that you're just floating up a little bit, just coming up to the tops of the trees. And as you come up in your imagination, floating up to the top of the trees and seeing everybody else floating up too, you sense the presence of mighty beings, extraordinary beings of another dimension, who are overlighting our meeting, who are aware of our meeting. And you open to the energy that flows through them, the energy of care, of dedication. Guardians of humanity, guardians of the earth, knowing that and respecting that we on earth must follow our own destiny, and yet also helping us in any way that they can. And you feel their energy flowing through you, and you feel the energy of this circle of beings flowing through our circle. And charged with this energy, you sense yourself floating down now, floating down to be seated on the earth. And as you come to be seated on the earth, you immediately move your hands and place the palms of your hands on the earth. And you allow some of that energy that flows from them to you to flow through you down into the earth. May this earth be preserved and protected. May peace rain on earth. May the land be blessed. May all life be blessed. And you let the palms of your hands now drift up, and you take the palm to either side of you so you can sense the whole circle now. And you feel that sense of community, of connection. And we give thanks for the strength of this community, the strength of this connection, this support. A blessing on all of our lives. And a blessing on the land. A gentle squeeze. And you let go of the hands to either side of you, and you move your hands to your heart. May my life be blessed. May all life be blessed. And as you do this, you start to become aware of your physical body. And as you become aware of your physical body, your awareness of the sacred grove begins to fade. As you start to become aware of the walls around you, the ceiling above you, and the floor beneath you. When you feel ready, you open your eyes, fully present, here and now. Says, interesting comments, Devatara. I feel the man or woman who is kind and allows that to ripple out into the world is far more positively spiritual than I, who has read a ridiculous amount of books and participated in X, Y, Z and practices daily. Diana Luna. Well, if these beings exist and are working for our good and happiness, given our current situation, I would fire them all. They're doing a terrible job. I'm in community with spirits. We help each other out. I don't perceive any of them as having a sole identity as guardian or guide. Everyone's got their own interests. Margot. Is there a council of souls, beings, masters? I don't find this idea very believable, but it's an attractive notion. I wish it was so, much of the time. No one is coming to save us. It's up to us, is a much repeated amongst democracy advocates in the US these days. So thank you all. Thank you all for that meditation and being together. And as Devatara said, perhaps in the end, it's a question of how kind, how generous, how helpful can we be to others that counts, and to ourselves too. So thank you for being here, and I very much look forward to seeing you next week. And in the meanwhile, have a lovely week. Much love to you, many blessings. And if you can come into the Druid Hearth, do by all means, come into the hearth, and I'll see you there. Okay, bye.